Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to Dingo and the Coach. I am Dingo, and this is the Coach, and we're very excited to do a thing that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and we just haven't had the opportunity to get with all the coaches around the area.
Yep.
And so today, we're going to do this for several months, is we're going to interview some of the local coaches around here in the area. Yep. And I'm excited to finally get Nick Ayers. We've been trying to get a hold together. We just couldn't work it out, so Nick's here. But we want to say that this podcast is sponsored by Some Estates in Anderson Township and Minnick grad Jim Serger. Yep. His latest book, 9/11, A Time to Always Remember, is on sale now nationwide. Over 90 Americans from coast to coast are in this book, including folks from McNick, Turpin, Anderson, including Steve and myself, host of this podcast, and they're available where books are sold or jimserger.com. So joining me as always is my co-host Steve Ellis. And Steve, I'll tell you what, I'm really excited. I got to watch Nick firsthand. I remember him playing, and then I also doing all the Anderson games, the Glen Estee, and then West Claremont, and just a hell of a coach. And it's going to be great just to talk to him and get his insight on coaching, not only at West Claremont, but also at Williamsburg.
Well, I know you know them pretty well because you're in a football family, and I'm not. But the Ayers name itself is, pretty legendary on the east side of Cincinnati, and it'll be good to get some stories from him, not only from him, but from his dad and the whole Ayers family, because it's just a legendary name on the east side, especially for football.
It really is, and we'll get into that here in a minute. So, as we said, joining us is Nick Ayers, and Nick, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
So, before we get into Williamsburg, let's just let's talk about influences for you that you had, and obviously, I know your dad was a pretty big influence in your life, and I know that he had a big impact here in this community too. So, talk a little bit about the influences that probably got you into where you are with coaching.
Yeah, so my dad's first and foremost the number one. I mean, a lot of kids wanted to be famous people when they was getting older and stuff and through school, and my dad was a garbage man that coached and impacted tons of people, and everywhere you went with him, people knew who he was. And there was no team too small and too young. You know how coaches get caught up, like I want to coach varsity or I want to coach this. He'd coach anybody. Right. And it's in the position he coached, O-line, where the most selfless dudes on the field.
Exactly.
And just an amazing human being that I've wanted to be like for as long as I can remember. Impactful. My Uncle Skinner, Ken, who was a welding instructor at Grant. He coached me. He coached defense at Glen Estee when I played. My Uncle Mike was in South Carolina the whole time. He was the head coach at Waffle for 30 years. Super huge impact, to me. We got a lot closer once I went to Georgetown, because he's a Georgetown alumni, and then he and I have been close ever since then. So that's over 20 years, when really I never grew up really around. We'd go watch a game or something like that, and watch Wofford play, but he and I became incredibly close. Talked ball a lot. I wanted to coach college ball because of him, and and I've got other uncles that impacted me too. My Uncle Joe was supportive. My Uncle Doug is head of officials in Southwest Ohio. He does some pretty good leadership, and it's just an amazing thing.
It's an amazing family, and I think you might have seen one of the podcasts that we had, that the influence that he had at McNick and Anderson. Yep. And I know my brother Timmy got to play for your dad, and Timmy just absolutely loved it. Not only him, but also Coach Campbell that coached there too. Yep. Huge. So, like you said, it didn't matter. He was at Anderson, he was at McNick, he was at Glen Estee. He was just a great guy, and obviously it's rubbed off on you. So,
all right. So I have a question for you, Nick. You said you played football at Georgetown, right?
Yep, Georgetown.
So what years were you there?
2000 to 2004.
Okay. And tell us about that experience, because I want to lead that into, after that, how you got into coaching.
So it was the greatest experience that you could ever be. I didn't know, really. I got coached by my family, and then I went to Georgetown, and I got my scholarship taken at Iowa Central because I got injured and I was out for the year. So it was only, back then it was $5,500 a year to go there.
Okay.
So I get a concussion, and they're like, hey, it looks like with the damage that was done to you, you're going to be out for the year. So you can stay here, and then we'll bring you back in next year, and we'll let you. It was just like, let you heal up for the year, and then you can come back. Yeah. So I was sitting in the hospital. I called my mom and dad, and I was like, what should I do? And they're like, and I was like, I got to pay $5,500 to stay here. Yeah. And they're like, it's up to you. We can do whatever, and blah blah blah. So I go back home. I'm sitting there working at different places, bars and Jillian's in Covington.
Really?
Nice.
There you go.
I was working at, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. What's funny is I worked there in high school.
Oh,
Did
I was
you
a
really?
bouncer at a bar in high school.
That surprised me.
It doesn't, like one of my buddies.
What floor? When there were like 6 floors.
Yeah, so there was a techno floor, an 80s floor, and it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Nice.
So I was just hanging out. My buddy Ike Klepper, who was one of the best linemen I've ever seen in my life, and one of the best human beings I've ever been around. We've been best friends for over 40 years. Grew up on Sunday, grew up in Mount Carmel together. So, and he goes, "Man, you need to come down to Georgetown. I think you could play." So I go to my parents and I was like, "Hey, do you think I could go to Georgetown?" And they're like, "Do you think you'll ever play?" And they just lost the national championship.
Oof.
So I went down there. They called me Mike for like at least a week, maybe 2.
No kidding.
Did they really?
Yeah. And they're just like, "I'm sorry, whatever." And they tried to make me a nose tackle. They gave me a defensive playbook, and I was like, "I'm not a nose tackle. Like, I just want to play running back here." And they're like, "Well, we just don't think you're fast enough." By game 3, they had some injuries, and I ended up playing, and I never came out.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
very
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
So after your years there at Georgetown, which sounds like you had a pretty good career if you never came out, how did you get into coaching from there?
So I started out. I had a cup of coffee with the Bengals. Signed with them out. Played a little bit of Arena League back and forth.
Hold on a minute. Start over. So tell us about the Bengals situation.
So I just got done with my senior year, and I was talking to my Uncle Mike, and I said, "Hey, I put up some pretty good numbers." And there was Brad Hoover, played for the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
And Brad and I looked a lot alike.
Okay.
And I called my Uncle Mike, and I said, in Carolina practiced at Wofford.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I talked to my Uncle Mike, and I said, "Hey, I look like that dude. Like, we're the same size, same numbers, same measurables, everything." And I was like, "Do you think I could play?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, I can make some calls for you and just see if you get some workouts, but they're not gonna bend on you, if you can't run or nothing like that." So me and James Taylor, we're at Georgetown College. There was a handful of dudes that go to the NFL off that team.
Okay.
Reese Hicks from Lebanon went, Jordan Hicks from Lebanon.
Yeah.
So Reese went to San Diego, Jordan went to Tampa Bay, James went to the Dolphins and then failed the physical and then ended up going to Green Bay.
Oh, wow.
So we're sitting there, and James goes, "Man, you just need to be able to run the same over and over and over again." So all we did is just trained, slept 12, 15 hours a day, ate, lifted, did everything. So I worked out for Carolina, New England, and the Bengals.
Okay.
So I get a hold of, and I was having trouble getting an agent because I was from such a small school. So I talked to Walters, Joe Walters.
Yeah.
That was a lineman for the Bengals?
Lineman for the Bengals. He was starting an agency with Anthony Munoz.
Oh.
So they talked to me and they said, "Hey, here's this, and we could probably get you some workouts, and you can go to some of those combines, like those national combines."
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike Eubanks from Bluegrass Sports calls me and says, "Hey, Coach Cronin, my coach at Georgetown, gave me your number and says you want to meet." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Meet me down at Waffle House in Richmond, and I'll meet you there." And he was Jason Akers' agent at the time, for the kicker for the Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was like, "Yeah, I'll come down there." And he goes, "Okay, here. I mainly do baseball, but I would do this for you because Coach Cronin told me that you were such a good kid." And I said, "I'll work as hard. Just get me a chance."
Yeah.
So Jim Lippincott, who was one of the most amazing, people ever, and he calls me and says, "Hey, Jim will let you run with the dudes from Pitt and Penn State."
Okay.
So, and a guy from UTEP. So I go, and I ran with Brandon Myrie too. Brandon Myrie was there. We're the same age.
Okay.
Woods grad. He ended up going to Green Bay too, I think.
Yeah, wow.
So we're sitting there running, and I was always early. I mean, I got there like an hour and a half early, and everybody was coming in and out, and guys forgot their cleats that were working out and everything.
Oh, geez.
So I go, and the workout was just unreal. I don't even remember how it was unreal.
Yeah.
And they come up to me and they go, "Who else have you talked to?" And I said, "I'll just talk to Carolina and New England." And those guys were regional guys, so it probably doesn't mean much. And he's like, "We're going to take you in the 7th round, or we're going to take you in free agency if something happens."
Really?
So I was like, "Okay, that's okay." Didn't even think, it was possible.
Right.
So go home, go back to working out. The draft happens, and I didn't get picked. And 45 minutes later, Jim Anderson, JA, they called him.
Right.
He calls him, and I missed his call. He leaves me a voicemail. He goes, "Congratulations, Cincinnati Bengal. We've selected you as a free agent. We want you to come down. We're gonna FedEx your contract to you and to Mr. Eubanks." And I couldn't believe it.
Oh my God, that's so
awesome.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So do you still have that contract?
Yeah, they put it on. I think I thought I lost it, but my wife put it together on my Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
Hall of
cool.
Fame poster board. Yeah.
Wow. What year was this?
It was 2004.
Okay.
And a lot of events happened around that time. A guy from my high school went missing in Iraq.
That's
Matt Maupin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that was around that. Like it was like a month later.
Okay.
And then they linked up that he and I went to high school together. And then it just became a bigger story, and it just like overwhelmed me almost.
Yeah.
You know? And then
Just crazy.
you know, like it was, and that dude was the best dude in the world.
Yeah.
Best dude. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he's still remembered, and
Absolutely.
that legacy's
Absolutely.
carried on, and
Yeah,
his
absolutely.
family's such a good family. His brother's awesome. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's what an experience you
It's
had.
a great experience.
yeah, and like I was worried because before the Bengals sent the contract, my agent was prepping me. He goes, "Okay, this could be a 1-day workout. This could be a 3-day deal.
Yeah.
This could be whatever."
You
And
made it long. You made
they gave me 2 years. They gave me 2 years with a 3rd-year option, and then one day I had gotten into some trouble. You know, I was having fun.
Being young and having fun.
I was having fun.
Yeah.
And I got in some trouble, and then I was living with Kyle Larson,
Yep.
and we were living in Covington.
Okay.
They put us in the hotel at the Marriott, right where the
Close to the waterfront. Oh my
Right by the
God. I was just going to say, wait a minute. Yeah.
So like I was local. I was a local person, so the first round pick was Chris Perry.
Yeah.
So it was.
How about that?
Yeah,
crazy.
So Caleb Miller was in the draft.
Yeah.
Landon Johnson from Purdue was
Caleb
there.
Miller, who married Ruby's
Yes.
daughter. Yeah.
Keywan Ratliff.
Yeah.
Amazing human being. Ohio guy that went to Florida.
Okay.
Wow.
Madu Williams.
Sure.
We were all in that group, in that rookie group, and I just made some bad choices, and I went into JA and said, "I just can't do this. I can't." My knee was still bothering me,
Yeah.
I played my freshman year with no ACL at Georgetown, then I played my junior year with no ACL.
Oh gosh.
So like I was just beat up and I was done, and then.
But that's a cool experience. I mean, like, were you ever in in awe of like, you're like, oh my God, there's this guy, or oh my God, there's this guy, you know what I mean? Or
so that was when Carson Palmer got named the starter.
Okay.
And John Kitna and him were, John was not happy.
Sure.
Right.
But Carson threw the ball, and I got to watch Chad Johnson before he was Ochocinco, and I got to watch him run routes, and it didn't look real in person.
Really?
When you were down there and watching these young DBs, because they had literally gotten a ton of DBs. Keywan Ratliff, Madu Williams.
Yeah.
They had brought in all these dudes that, and it was like watching him and Hushmanzada and Kelly Washington and those guys.
Yeah.
And then Carson would throw you a pass, and it didn't look like it was spinning.
Really?
Yeah, like I was like, I'm like breaking the huddle. And then a fan, this is when I knew like it was just weird. We were walking out, and we practiced across the street when we would go to the grass. And I was walking with Carson, and Carson's like, "Man, it's pretty hot out here." And I was like, "Yep," and just ignored him. And because I was just so nervous because he was there. And this one, and I get ahead of him, and somebody goes, they rolled the window down, and a kid sticks the paper to get an autograph. And I was like, "Buddy, you don't want my autograph, you want his." And they called me a name. The mom called me.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I was so dumb. And you got to think, Corey Dillon left. I got Corey Dillon's number.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That is
So after that experience, which is unbelievable, what happened after that before you got into coaching? Or
So like I interned for Jim Hilbert and Rod Huber at Mount.
yeah,
I did not know
nice.
that.
Yeah, I did for the strength department. That's
Okay.
Did you really? I did not know that.
Cool.
And then like I just wanted to go and be with my dad and then Zach Taylor and them on the coaching staff at Glen Estee.
Okay.
And I just started going back there, and I got lucky when I went back because they had unbelievable guys on that team.
Oh, yeah.
That was my first year.
Is that the team when they played St. X in a
No, it was the Division II year.
Okay.
So there was a run of 3 years there where they go second round, lose to St. X, 17-7, I think.
Right.
Something
Good game.
Great game.
Yep.
That was when Keekly.
Yeah.
They couldn't block Keekly. He ended up being all right at football.
Yeah.
We go the first year I'm there. We're Division II, and we play Jackson in Miami Trace. And it is freezing. I mean, freezing. And I thought I was a really good coach because I had Matt Jackson, who went to Holy Cross.
Yeah.
I had Todd Butts. I was running back.
I remember
Todd
Butts.
Butsy, who went to College of Charleston.
Okay.
And Donnie Talbot went to Ohio Dominican. Yeah. And I was like, I'm an unbelievable coach. I'm like the best. I was like, if it's going to be like this, football's. So they got me like a student assistant or a job working with kids and stuff in the building, and from there I was involved with West Claremont for 17 years.
Wow.
The West Claremont district.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So how long were you the head coach for? Well, let's start with Glen Estee.
So 5 years.
So 5 years.
Coach.
And then they combine.
Yep. And 5 years.
All right. So let's talk about that. So how was that transition? Because it's kind of unique.
Totally different. I mean, it's like just the small, and then it's all one big one.
Bringing Amelia over and combining the schools.
So the one thing I did do is we didn't bring Amelia over. We went to Amelia.
Okay.
Because I was already had kids comfortable with me from Glen Estee.
Yeah.
And the culture we had built of toughness and
that's a good idea.
So we took all the weight equipment over to Amelia.
Okay.
And
that's a great idea.
Lifted there.
Okay.
And we would not be allowed. We didn't allow anybody to wear purple.
Okay.
I was not nearly as hard on the Amelia kids as I was the Glen Estee kids about the purple and stuff. We wouldn't talk in certain tones or whatever. And it was a grind to the end. And so many coaches were pumped up about the merge that you had double-digit coaches in the weight room. Normally you struggle.
Yeah. Sure.
And guys get disconnected or, whatever. So, you just, it was a perfect storm of, and you bring back 20 starters. That never happens.
20 from Glen Estee?
No.
Just combined.
Those guys started. And,
holy cow.
And Coach Broush, I played in the East-West game for Coach Broush in 1999 when he won state title.
Yeah.
He had Kelton Lindsay and the Hicks brothers. So he did an unbelievable job of kind of like getting the numbers up and getting all those things going.
So from your first year to your last year there, I mean, was it starting to settle down? Like they were more or less, they had already bought into the West Claremont instead of the Glen Estee and Amelia, or?
Yeah, I mean, you just had a difference. So West Claremont's district's, I think, 54 square miles. So you had a different kid from different parts of the area, right?
Yeah.
So like,
sure, especially with all the new neighborhoods and everything going on.
Neighborhoods and
it's still growing.
Yeah, it's still growing. And, and you would get that Glen Estee got kind of. Like my Glen Estee kids that played for me were like, man, you're too nice. You're too nice to these guys. The weight room was air conditioned. There wasn't dirt field.
Right.
But when you fill in for like a Zach Taylor, there's a toughness built.
Right.
That he's going to have no matter where he coaches,
right?
And he was unbelievable mentor to me. And
well, I know I got to bring this up because I think he was kind of bummed, as I think you missed my nephew by Daniel Hennessy by like a year, and I know he would have loved to play for you. He's brought that up. Played center, played for coach that you said for at Amelia, and he just loved it. I mean, and I think he's always talked about he wish he would have had one more year so he got to play for you. So.
I get to hang out with him when he's older now. So
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Wait a minute.
That's good or bad.
Let's change the whole topic here.
Yeah, because I hang out with him too, and it's kind of nuts. So
I'm like, I'm ready for bed. He's like, it's only 2 a.m.
yeah.
I haven't been out him that long. I mean,
But he is that way.
He's
fun.
an amazing kid.
He's a great kid.
He's got a big heart.
Yeah, he hangs out with my daughter, and
he's a good kid.
yeah, he's an amazing kid.
Yeah, he's fun. I'll actually be with him this weekend. I'm sure he's going to put me to shame. We're going to Cumberland. I'm picking his butt up at 5 a.m. after the Anderson game, and then I'm going to pick him up. We're heading to Cumberland, and he said I have to be back early on Sunday. I don't know what his early is on Sunday because he seems like it's not a big deal. He can stay up all night and do whatever he does.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and he's the guy that like is at Cumberland with like duck water wings on. Or, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. And
Yeah, he does. That's funny. So let's get into. So just recently, you left West Claremont and you went to Williamsburg High School. Talk about that transition going from like we just said, West Claremont, really big school. You're going to Williamsburg. Talk a little bit about maybe I don't know if it's difficult or the challenges that you have going from a big school like that to a smaller school like Williamsburg.
So when you go, there is no specialization at Williamsburg. So you're going to get 2, 3, sometimes 4 sport athletes, guys that ask you, hey, can I do this during the season? Tons of kids that work, tons of kids that are in charge of their families. But it's been, I get to reinvent myself with an unbelievable group of kids. And I've got to give Coach Ward a ton of credit that I took when he left, I took his spot. And do you remember when Jim Harbaugh said that Ryan Day was born on third and thinks he hit a triple?
Yeah.
So I'm not a baseball person at all, but I woke up on second at least, maybe third, because I've got some dudes and they've got some grit to them that Coach Ward instilled, and Coach Ward is a really, really good coach, and his staff did an amazing job. So with that, I got a good group of kids. So there's no, when you put up 48 in the first week, it's not because of what I called. It's what
they did.
It's what the kids did and putting them in situations. And
so did you have a lot of kids that came back off the team from last year? Did you have new kids too? We have some new kids, but we also had a really good group. My tight ends are 6'3" and 6'5". God, that's amazing.
And that's in Division 6.
I know that's
huge.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right. So the first game you played Batavia.
Yep,
What was
it's a
that
big
score?
rivalry. It's 48-7.
Wow. That's big. And tell us about the atmosphere there.
So they said it was the biggest crowd ever. It was like 3,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful stadium. Mr. Abrams and his family paid for the stadium a couple years ago. 2018, I think, is when it opened.
Okay.
And they've got so much invested in that community, and it shuts down. It's Wildcat drive-through, Wildcat subs and sides. People know you when you walk in. And it's something just like you can really, really, really be proud of. It's not the alignment. I think that if you ever watch the old documentary about Massillon, when they say the 3 things that fall past levees, it's the football, band, and cheer, and you have every different dynamic lifestyle. This is like that, but it's the alignment of administration, community, and program. Okay. And what it is all of them have the same goal. It's not flooded by worry of, hey, we don't like getting emails, or this doesn't seem like something we want. They want to be good. They want to do what's right for kids, and they like the ideas that I have, and sometimes that's probably hard.
That's great. So, what did you know about Williamsburg going in?
So, the history of Coach Osborne. I think he's 51st in wins in the state of Ohio. He's got 207. Wow. He's got 207, had 2 trips through Berg, and I don't know the exact years. Okay. Amazing coach and competitor. He, I think he's 31 years. Jason Bainham had all the
I was just getting ready to bring him up. Yeah, he said that huge. Remember him? He went nuts.
Yeah. Well, he had unbelievable record, and didn't he have a cup of coffee with Ohio State or something?
He went to Capital. Capital and played tight end.
But wasn't there something about his record so that it was miscalculated or something?
No, that's not him. That wasn't him. I don't think.
Was that another running back?
I think it was another running back because he had
he carried every single time.
He carried every single time. He had 40 to 50 touches a game.
Oh my gosh!
Single wing.
Yeah.
Single wing, and
he's a big dude too. Wasn't
he was a big dude, and he went to Capital and played tight end.
Okay.
They, this is when they knew, and this is a big deal. So they're at halftime, and Jason's a freshman, and this is stories like I love hearing the stories. You know? Like I want to know, because there's names that overlap, and you're like, well, who are you and how you're related, and like the Lefker name. I mean, the one son is pole vaulter at Youngstown State, which just went to nationals in Oregon.
Oh, wow!
And you're saying a division, I don't know, like how there's different divisions for track and basketball. Yep. Well, I mean, he's from a small school of 30 boys in a grade or something like that. Yeah. And he goes up and he's in the final whatever, and
that's amazing.
Division One,
That's amazing.
That's got to mean more.
It's just unreal. And his dad and him, like I coached track at I think it was at Glen Estee one year, and I watched him and the relationship they had, and like just it's just like a father-son thing, where Eric Thomas talks about, well, he's got a dad when they talk about Mayweather and stuff. Right, like that was one of those deals where they built it together. Yeah, right. And coming from a small school, they've won a state title in softball within the past couple years.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Matty Ogden, who's on.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So like they
had a couple of years in a row.
They had a state championship wrestler, heavyweight.
Oh my gosh!
So they've got history there that like people, unless you're there, you can't even imagine what it's like.
Real quick, so I know you said earlier the Division 6, right?
Yeah, we're Division 6,
and then the conference isn't the Southern
SBC,
and that's with like, is it Batavia and
so they're in big SBC. So they're so Western I think is Division 3, and then it's like 3 and 4s, and then you got 5s and 6s down with us. Okay. So we're like Bland, Fayetteville dropped football. So we got to go to like Reevesville.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
So how many teams of that in the lower division do you have in your?
So the lower division is going to be us, Bethel. Bethel's been loaded for the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, they've won in 4 years. Jeff's won.
He's a good coach.
Yeah, he's a really good coach. He's won 30 games in 40 years. I mean, I'm guessing, but so you've got Bethel, Blanchester. You had Fayetteville, C&E.
C&E.
So
is New Richmond in the upper one?
New Richmond's in the upper one. Okay. Pitzer's there.
Yes, he is.
So, I love Pitzer.
He's a good dude too.
He brings the
he brings the energy.
He brings the energy. Depending on what time of the morning.
That's right.
Him, I'm like,
So all right. So I had always heard that the smaller schools, as far as football goes, like we talked about how the support. I mean, were you surprised like last week with just the amount of people that were there and the spirit? I mean, this sounds like a Hoosiers movie
like
or
a
something.
Varsity, like varsity blues.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. I'm telling you, it's something that I was ignorant to it, and it is something that. It is just a great place.
Well, don't you think all, like me, being over here in Anderson, you're West Claremont, we're all ignorant to it. We don't see it. We're not there. You know what I mean? So how would you?
We wouldn't know. In it.
And now you're in it, and it's amazing.
And now I'm in it, and I get to reinvent myself without changing my address or doing anything crazy.
No, you don't have to.
I go from Navy to Royal, and it's like I bleed this. I'm willing to give my life for it because these kids look at you and they're so attentive to what they're doing, and you got kids that are spread thin. I mean, they're I have a weight equipment company, and one of my kids went with me, and I was like, hey, how do you make extra money? And he goes, I sell cattle. And I was like, where?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? And he goes,
I know. It's just a different.
My grandpa got me a deal. Yeah. And I go and I sell them off for more. And he goes, I make off of 2 cattle, I make what I need for the summer. Yeah. And I was just like, what? Yeah. Like, how does that even work? Like, who picks it up?
And it's only a few miles away.
Does that explain why you have the pig? I saw the pig.
I've got multiple pigs.
I was going to say, is that the reason?
I love and like the life I have, man, with my wife and kids and stuff, it's like there's nothing better.
Right.
There's nothing. Right. I mean, it's just great.
So what did your team, when you talking to your guys, what were they expecting going into this year?
So this senior class expects to be great at everything. Okay. They are not modest at all. I mean, they are very confident in themselves. Yeah. They love being together, which is very, is awesome. But again, it's the honeymoon phase, like it is. Yeah. I'm new. So like when I was going through summer and we didn't get some of those kids, like basketball is super important in Burke. You know, I don't think it's quite important as football is like perception, you know.
Yeah.
But like June, I didn't want to affect the basketball kids.
Sure.
I didn't want to like have them pick.
Right.
Because if I'm picking basketball because it's fun.
Right.
Weightlifting's terrible.
Right.
You know, like it's like practice and running. And so like
killed.
Yeah.
But it happens though.
Right.
It happens in a lot of schools, but especially in small schools where you got to share. You got to share the sports.
We have a relationship with the coaches, and I said it's specification, not specialization. So what that means is, what are you? Well, I'm better at basketball. Are you? You're sure? Right. Okay, then you're a basketball player that plays football. If you need to miss, I totally get it. It would be like a Midland Redskin coming to me to play. Yeah. And then being like, hey, coach, I can't, I'm going to come as much as I can, but when Connie Mack hits, is that what he's called?
Yeah.
I'm not a baseball person.
That's pretty good.
I watched, but my brother Mikey was on it. So, hey, I got to go to Farmington in July, whatever date it is, and I'm going to stay until the 3rd. And
it happens.
But I'm going to be here all summer, and you've declared you're a baseball player that plays football. Right. So you go. But when it's my time, I'm going to get you. It's like, would Loveland ever tell Luke Waddell, hey, you can't?
Well, I'll tell you just from what I briefly remember when I was coaching basketball at Anderson was when they won a state championship, Daniel Raw was a quarterback. And that summer, he went on to play baseball at Xavier. And that summer, his baseball team was unbelievable, and he was gone the whole summer. And I can remember, Vince about pulling his hair out, and of course, and then Jeff Geesting, and here's your star quarterback, captain, and he's not around because he's
playing baseball.
Yeah, so
that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
We were just talking about systems, right? So, Coleraine has the system. Anderson now has Dreyer with his system. Pitzer, I think, is doing. So you always ran the wing tee. Are you still running that wing tee, or are you just explain are you one of those, I guess system guys, if you want to call it that, how programs do that? Are you sticking with that, or are you doing something different?
I just made up, the wing tee, and I think I'm innovative, right? I think I'm smart in some things, but I call it the Booker tee. The wrestler. Yeah, like where it's crazy and wild, and we'll run RPOs off buck sweep, and we'll run triple off stuff, and we'll do different things, and that's what I think I am. I think I'm a Booker T coach, where I'm not just wing tee.
Can I use that?
Yeah.
So what were they? Do you remember?
They were wing tee.
Okay.
So they came in.
So you just added a little twist.
I added a little
more fun.
I would say I'm fun to be around.
Yeah. So they're throwing the ball more?
Oh, yeah. I mean, J.J. Miller he only threw it a couple times, but he had 2 touchdowns, had a pick 6, and then ran for 1. So
okay, that's pretty nice.
Yeah,
that works. All right, so you briefly touched on it early on, because I want to go back to the influence that your dad had, and because he got to coach at a few different places, and all the impacts that he talked about Timmy and everything like that. What traits have you taken from him, and what did you pick up even from an early age to lead you to the coach that you are now, being successful?
I mean, what I always wanted to be was probably as tough as my dad. And I'm the most sensitive brother that we have. Like, I'm the wimpiest,
That's not accurate.
Sure it's not true.
That's not accurate.
But, my dad was so tough. Like, just so tough, but so caring. And when we talked about, and people would tell stories, and then somebody would come up to me like, I don't believe that your dad said that. And I'm like, oh, he said that.
Yeah.
He acted like that. And they're like, well, and I said, he just wore a bunch of different hats, where he could coach a kid that had both parents and was affluent, and he could coach the kid that came from nothing.
Yeah.
And
well, you said that he could coach any level, but did he have a sport that he liked coaching the best?
So people said he was he was a better player at baseball, but like with an O-line, look at the O-lines he had at Glen Estee. It didn't matter if they were 5'8" across the board or 6'4" across the board. And they, in Claremont County, more of us are 5'8" than 6'4".
Sure.
I mean, it's just not, there's not Norwells and Manses walking around, you got, so I think his coaching of O-line and the selflessness of him as a person and how much he took care of those guys that didn't get a lot of attention, and it was just like you just wanted to play hard for him. And whether it was you were motivated by not getting yelled at by him, or you were motivated by how he treated you.
See, that seems like it's so lost now, because you have that little fear factor, as we did with our dads and our coaches growing up, but it was more so that you didn't want to disappoint them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of that seems to have gone by the wayside a lot nowadays.
No, I just think the influence that you've had, not only on, obviously Daniel wanted to play for you, but you had my other nephew Robbie and all those guys that he hung around with, and that was always the hard broadcast for me, broadcasting that game, because I knew you and I knew Robbie and I knew all those kids, and then of course I want Anderson to win, but that was a hard game for me to try to be a part of that, to be and you've had a big influence on a lot of kids' lives, and I know that people might not say, I know that at Anderson it's the same way. I think you don't realize until you're out. You know what I mean? Until you're not around. And I think you've had a huge impact on all those kids' lives.
Yeah, and everything's relative. And by the way, Robbie's the smartest football player ever coached. Yeah. Ever. Smartest, most gifted kid mentally.
And he loves to argue with me, too. He does. Yeah, he loves to argue with me.
So, but it's all relative. Let's take a kid that has both parents that work full-time jobs and they make tons of money and they travel, and he's home by himself. Yeah. Is that the same as the kid that both parents they're in a trailer and both parents are on, they only have one, and one's on, the one's on dope, and literally the grandparents have to take him everywhere. It's the same life. Yeah. I know that you eat better. Right. You probably aren't eating government cheese and you're eating the good stuff. Yeah. But that kid mentally has the same, and COVID did a number on kids because it just isolated you. Yeah. And those kids, you have to take each kid in each event and treat them like they're the most important person in the world, because that is somebody's most important prized possession for a kid. Yep. So when they show up, the last thing you want is them leaving like not knowing the truth or not understanding or doing your best as a coach.
Right. Well, you definitely did that. I know Robbie speaks highly of it, and all those kids do, and they love you for it. And thanks for doing that for him too, because I appreciate that. And Robbie still fascinated me with him, watching him play, because wasn't the biggest dude.
Oh, he was tiny.
And he would still go in there and he'd put his head down. He didn't care if it was a big dude or not. He'd go in there and he'd try to make the tackle, and most of the time he did.
Oh, you love coaching guys like that.
Yeah. He did an amazing job for us. I mean, the personal fouls and stuff, he was always good for that. And Larry would be so proud. And Larry'd be like, "Did you see it?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I saw it, Larry." Of course. I said, we were about to get a punt team out there, or a punt return team out, and here he goes acting like an idiot.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh yeah.
So it's always important. I know that we both have great wives that support everything we do with him coaching, and then all the broadcasting and all the stuff I do. You have to have a great family. You have to have a good wife. You have to have good kids. Talk a little bit about your family. I know your wife is awesome, and I've met her several times, but you got to have a good support system, and she's awesome.
Yeah, so she does. She's just changed me as a person, like helped me. And she's so supportive. I don't know if it's like that Eastern Kentucky loyalty thing or what it is, but she's allowed us to take kids in, players that we've had to help raise a little bit. We're living a dream that we never thought we'd live on a good piece of land, and got 2 pigs, 8 goats, 14 chickens, 5 dogs, and
is this at the Ayers compound?
No. This is out in Bethel. This is out in Bethel. This is different. I'm about 94 acres short of what I want, but it'll come eventually. I love every minute of my life now. We tore my kitchen out a long time ago, and it's not done yet. And now I hear about that.
I bet.
Every day.
Yeah,
but, looking in the stands at Williamsburg and just seeing like my brothers and my mom.
Right.
It's
awesome.
Wishing my dad was there.
Sure.
And former players, and just the messages they send me, and then,
It's awesome, and that's what it's all about. That's exactly what it's all about.
It'd bring you just. Yeah. That's exactly why you do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Who do you play this week?
We play St. Bernard. They've got 2 dudes that are just
legit.
6'3", 220 quarterback, and they've got a 210, 230-pound running back.
Oh, wow.
That got some juice to them. So
are they coming to you?
They're coming to us.
Good. You don't have to make that travel.
I know. And then you got to play at Bacon, right?
Yeah.
They play at Bacon.
They got to. They're right next door.
Yeah, they play at Bacon. Then we play Marymount at home.
Okay.
So they historically, I think, are good.
Pretty decent.
So we got to get some film on them and see how, let's just get back past this, group right here and see how we do. But I'm having the time of my life.
I love
Good for you.
It's unreal.
Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's been hard to try to connect with your football schedule and everything that we got going on.
We wait until he's in the middle of it.
Yeah, we wait until,
Thanks for taking the time.
We've been trying to get you before. That's why, because I figured you were going to be slammed with the football. But for you to come here on a night when you had football and he just came from practice, it's pretty huge. And I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having me. This is an unbelievable setup. And, you remember, we invited you to the box at Glen Estee. And I was like, and I go, I'm willing to do it, but you just got, and you're like, I know we're homers. I know it. And I go to Mr. Simmons. I go to Dan Simmons, who's Anderson along.
Yeah, I know he is.
And he goes, they're homers, right? And I was like, he said the same thing. Yeah. And I said, but I love Robbie.
Yeah.
And I like them. Yeah. And there's a respect there. Yeah. I love Evan Dreyer.
Yeah.
And what he does.
Yep.
And he has an identity.
Right.
He's willing to live without an identity no matter what.
Yep.
And it's totally changed Anderson football.
Oh, I agree. I
mean,
I agree. Well, I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate
good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully, well, you got some fans in us, so we'll be watching on there, and then hopefully maybe we can talk with you at some other point when you're in the playoffs, and we can talk about you in the playoffs.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. So I appreciate it. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So our podcast again was sponsored by Summit Estates in Anderson Township and Nick grad Jim Surger. His latest book, 9/11, A Time to Always Remember, is on sale now nationwide. Over 90 Americans from coast to coast are in this book, including folks from McNick, Turpin, and Anderson, including myself and Steve, the host of this podcast. And these books are available where they're sold or jimsurger.com. So
you're getting good at that. That's good.
Well, I'm reading it so much now, but I appreciate Jim and sponsoring our podcast this month. And if you haven't gone out there and get the book, it's pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
It's really cool. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So for Dan Albers, Steve Ellis, and Nick Ayers, you've been listening to Dingo and the Coach, and we'll catch you next time.